Hello everyone, it's Sue from Paper Drake. Welcome to my channel. Today I've brought along a couple of books for you to have a look at. I'm not really someone who does a lot of digital downloading. My books tend to be full of images that I've picked up around and about as I've gone exploring, lots of foliage, that kind of thing. But they do have their uses, and I've been looking for one or two that might help to enhance my style, shall we say, without actually losing the type of book that I like to produce. So I've downloaded, used two or three images from Tracy at Love Junk Journals, and here you see what I've come up with. The first one I've made a dust cover for, something I haven't done before, but there were so many beautiful images in these sets that I didn't want to waste what I'd printed out, and I thought I'd put them to good use by making a dust cover. I've used an altered book, so it was quite a good opportunity to not have to alter the lovely cover that already existed. So as you can see, I put them all onto quite a big cover, and that meant that the dings and dangs that come from age in a vintage book can stay as they are, but not necessarily be added to, and it means that I don't really have to alter the cover at all, because I quite liked this design. I think it reflects some of the books that I like to produce. I like the side of Cornwall that is to do with foliage and the seascape and the landscape that comes from the moors inland, and this is a title by Daphne du Maurier, who wrote a lot of her very brooding novels in Cornwall. So this one is her most famous, probably. It's Rebecca, and it's one that I like to use quite often. And so here we go. Inside I've used a little slot. Well, it's a belly band really, and I've matched it up with the pattern of the paper so that when you pull out you don't have too much of a gape in things. It continues the pattern, so you don't have to have anything slotted in there if you don't want to. These are two of the images, and I thought they look very well. That black and white one looks very nice against it, and so does the colour one, so you can really choose how you would like your cover to look. I'll put a link below of the images that I used from the downloads. I used three altogether. One was packets of seeds, or seed packets I should say, and the other two were an embellished pack number 2, embellished vintage botanicals, and the other one was vintage botanicals. So you'll be able to find all of those on her Etsy shop if you follow the link that I leave below. That's another one of her images, and then here we've got some vintage paper, and then more journaling cards on the other side, and you can see that I've also used some washi tape just to make sure that that is protected, because vintage paper can be so delicate. So here are the botanicals, the big ivy leaf that I found down in some of the gardens near here. In Cornwall we have lots of mysterious places that are full of ivy and dead leaves, and I really like to include those in my book. And this old house, image of an old house from the kit, is just what I needed. I've backed it with a page from a vintage book, and I've gessoed it as well to give you space to write or draw. And then there's a double pocket here, and it has a little cluster of goodies inside, tags and cards. Lovely images. I really like those sepia coloured ones. There's a double pocket there, so you've got plenty you can put in there, and there's still, it would take a few more. So Here another little specimen of Montbretia, which I picked from my son's garden and pressed, and another little one of his images here. This is using the word botanical, and that is cut off one of the tags that came with the digital download kit. One of the things I liked about it was quite easy to cut around some of the images to make them how you wanted them to look, and I think that's a sign of a really good kit, where you don't have to use it exactly as it is. You can easily cut round. So this envelope, for instance, that was in the kit, you could easily cut that image off the front and use it on its own, and you could even cut into it again to make a third kind of image. This is a vintage paper from the Enormous Turnip. This is something I've been experimenting with lately, making my own stamps. More of that lovely delicate vintage paper that I got when I was on holiday. I went to a sale, found a couple of lovely books. The paper's delicate, but it's beautiful. That was Edith Holden, made into not Edith Holden herself, but a page from a book made into an envelope. This is another from the page from Calico Collage. Another one of my little images that I've really enjoyed making. And then again, this is one of the small images from the kit, which I've just done a bit of a collage with, and this again is the end of a tag cut off to make a little tuck spot. And then over the other side you'll see that I've made something else from the rest of the tag. That is another journaling card which I've backed, and then there's the original tag, and there is the other bit of the tag that I cut the name off, so you don't lose any of the stuff that you have cut off. You can use the whole thing, so it's not wasted, it's just chopped up in a different way. And here's another one, again gessoed vintage paper, a little tea card, another one of the envelopes. This is a magic thing. It's a stenciling acetate, and I found that some of the specimens stuck to it, so I shall be trying that again. This lovely little girl has collected her specimens, and she's got 2 clover flowers and is wearing a skirt that is just the same. Another image from the kit, and I've got a nice little selection of different papers here, which I like to do. I like to have the different sizes and weights and variety. More of the images from the stencil, the printables that I made. This is one of my favourite things from the embellished kit. I just like the size and the shape of them, and again they have some of that vintage writing paper backed onto them. And then another stamp. This is a bookmark, but also has some journaling space. And then 2 more tags. I've backed one with plain paper and one with lined. More Edith and stamping, more journaling space. I'll fold out there. And then this idea, when I downloaded the seed images, seed packet images, I took an idea from Carol at So Carol. I'll put a link at the bottom, and this was to make a little concertinaed tuck spot there, little pockets. And what I like is that if you have things that come just above the pockets, you get quite a nice 3D effect, which is quite difficult to show you, as I don't have my usual filming equipment available to me today. So I've had to make do with a windowsill and a lamp, which you can see reflected in that next magical plant keeper. Here's the first page of the vintage book with the title of Rebecca and a specimen from down the park. And then this image is from a vintage book by a chap called Derek Tanguy. I use his images quite a lot in my books. He wrote all about his adventures in Cornwall, where he lived with his wife Jean, and they looked after many animals. And then this is another image which I have stamped out a heart shape, and then I've backed it with a bit of that acetate, and I've trapped a little leaf inside too to give it a bit of dimension. You haven't lost any writing space because you can lift that up. And then to the back page where I've put a couple more of the seed packets. Now I've folded these, but I haven't stuck them because I know some people actually like to sew them in to a book or stick them into a book. So I've left that available for you to put it on one of the pages if you want. And you can leave them so that they're just open and you can just slot little specimens in, or you can stick them together and use them as the pockets. And so that brings me to the end of this book. I thoroughly enjoyed making it, and I particularly enjoyed doing the dust cover, as it was something I hadn't tackled before. The little snail that crawls up the inside of the cover is from the page from Calico Creations. But the rest have all come from the kits from Tracy, so I was very pleased with that. It's really good value for money. So now I still, in my fervour of printing, still had some things to use up. So I made this little tag keeper. The front and back covers are made from quite a heavy weight, I think it was 380 GSM, heavyweight watercolour paper, which I did some eco dyeing with last year. This one had a lot of ferns on, as you can see. They came out really nicely. So I took half an A4, so I took an A5 sheet and cut that in half, and then using some scraps I hinged it together. And so then inside, this is a bit more from Calico Collage, and I've just used that to make a little belly band there, so that you can slip in some extras. And I've included with the extras a couple of full-size sheets of that vintage paper, and it just slots back in, and then that opens out and you can see more tags and embellishments. There's a little sample there of lavender, and I like these tags, these pink ones. They're a little bit smaller than the others, and I think they ended up being my favourite ones in the end. Another one here, backed with vintage paper, and these darling little ones, these tiny little squares are so useful because they're quite nice to stick on the ends of your thread in the middle of your signatures. And here some more journaling spaces in that little tuck spot there, and then that folds in, and then more cards, and then these three little ones that are miniature versions of the others, which I've backed with a plain paper which has a bit of sort of structure to the feel. And that's it. It all folds up, and you could keep all your cards in there, or you could keep some stamps with it and little things that you've found. And so there are my two little chaps all waiting to go on my Etsy shop, which I will do shortly. If you want to see a video of how I made any of that, please put a comment in the box below, and I will do my very best to help you. Bye bye.